fall. Arms for the monastery.
I have no room for that. I've no room for that.